this is the meat of the thing, is that you come into, you're trying to do your best, and you even express like, oh my God, I'm like really struggling. And I wish I had some help, for example. And they go, well, if you can't hack it, then like, why'd you even have a kid in the first place? This is not actually the same day as last recording. It is totally a coincidence that I'm wearing not the same outfit, but like I'm wearing a different pink turtleneck and then the same sweater. One of the ways autism manifests in my life is the kind of like repetition and rigidity that is I wear the same clothes over and over again if I have a choice. I know it's not sexy, but there it is. Anyway, we are continuing, and hopefully today we'll finish reacting to Yosemite Sam's Burnout live stream.
So the analyzing patterns part, I think, is probably the most important, because otherwise you'll just be kind of like repeating yourself over.
I disagree. You don't need to begin your autistic burnout recovery journey by identifying the things that cause your burnout. Because if you are burnt out, you will not have the time or the energy or the focus or the heart to uncover your patterns, to like dig as deep as it takes to like dismantle in your life the systems that are causing you to burn. It's just another thing to do while you're burnt out that prevents you from recovering. So don't bother looking, don't do that. Don't like look for your patterns in your systems. Start by making yourself feel better, by getting the appropriate amount of social connection, physical activity, laughter, crying, creative self-expression, good amount of sleep. If you can work on those things, you will start to feel better, and you will start to notice, unless you have alexithymia, you will start to notice that, oh, I started to feel better after I did X or Y or Z, or the combination of these things seems to be really improving, or when I stop doing that thing, that self-care thing that I had started before, when I stopped, I started feeling worse again. So maybe I should go back and do that. If you have alexithymia, then by all means, like, just the thing one is start getting in touch with your physical experiences. Again, Feminist Survival Project podcast, we did a whole series on how to listen to your body. If you have alexithymia, please go do that first, because you can't do any of this other stuff unless you notice your internal experience. And I so sympathize, because that was my problem. And then once you start to feel better, you will start to be more aware of the things that are uncomfortable. And you won't have to like write it down and discover it and dig deep into your body will tell you.
You might also say things like, if somebody were to say, well, this is going really wrong in my life and this is causing me loads of stress, and I'd say, well, okay, change it. I mean, I wouldn't be that flippant with you, dear viewers, would I though? Probably.
I might, except I know that that's not factually true. Some things we just have no control over and we can't change. Anyway.
But I wouldn't mean it. But you might say like, oh, well, I can't possibly change that. And yeah. I guess the unpalatable truth is that you might have to if you want to avoid burnout.
Let's acknowledge that there are a lot of things that cause burnout that people cannot avoid. Racism causes burnout in people of color. Misogyny causes burnout in women, right? Like, we can't change that. And you don't, and the good news is you don't have to change it. You don't have to change the thing that's causing you stress in order to feel better, because you can deal with the stress in your body in a separate process from dealing with the thing that causes you stress. If there is a thing you can change, and you have some capacity to make that change, by all means, yes, do that. That's important. That's good. Hooray. But let's recognize that no, you don't have to change things that cause you stress necessarily.
And part of this, obviously we're resistant to change, aren't we? But part of kind of, I guess, developing a burnout recovery kit. It's like a first aid kit, but it goes on forever. It's a form of radical self-care. And when I say radical self-care, you know, like, I don't mean like self-care like taking bubble baths, although I really find I had an amazing bath this morning, but radical means like this isn't something that's going to be easy. This is going to involve change. It's going to involve things that might be difficult. That's what I mean by radical self-care. But what that means together is that everything you
Yeah,
do
okay.
has to be directed at healing yourself.
So what she means by self-care is not, she's trying to distinguish what she means when she says self-care from what like Instagram says is self-care. Like getting a manicure is self-care. Like if self-care, if that's what it is for you, fine. But like the original definition of self-care was the things you have to do to keep yourself clean and fed. So what she's talking about is radical, is just regular self-care. it's yeah. Yeah. So that's why I was confused at first, is because she was like, it's radical because it's not a scented candle. That's not radical, babe. That's just actual self-care.
And everything that you have to do has to be with that in mind. You know, you need to be thinking, what are the things that you need on a daily basis that you aren't getting? What do you need? Because what you need is often not what you think it is. And, you know, maybe you need 2 hours of silence in the morning. Okay, if you have a child, that might not be practical. And actually, I promised I'd talk about motherhood. So maybe now is a good time.
Okay, so before she talks about motherhood, this idea of self-care, that you have to figure out what changes you need to make to your life is not a helpful approach to curing or preventing burnout. If you feel like you have to protect yourself by yourself, that's just going to add to your stress. No. Sorry, Sam. I think you're great. But the cure for burnout is not self-care, not radical self-care, not bubble baths, and it's not discovering that you need 2 hours of silence. Because if you discover that you need 2 hours of silence and then motherhood makes that impractical, what do you actually need? You still need those 2 hours. Is it possible to have 2 hours of silence as a mother? Yes, if you have help. That's why the cure for burnout is not self-care. It's all of us caring for each other.
But what that means together is that everything you do has to be directed at healing yourself. And that and everything that you have to do has to be with that in mind.
Right. This is what she was talking about right before I finished the last part of the video. And I wanted to talk about this because she says, like, everything you do needs to be focused on what you need to heal. Like, and so every choice you make, it might be uncomfortable, but you make these choices no, don't do that. Don't make every plan you make and every decision and like analyze your whole life to make sure that everything you're doing is for your good and what you need. Because that sounds hard and unpleasant and like a big ass project that nobody's going to do. I'm not going to do that. I didn't do that. You need to do the things that make you feel better, and you need to get help. Don't make self-care a special interest. I mean, maybe like if you've got the time and energy for that, good for you, great. But man, don't turn self-care into like just another fucking project you have to do, another task you have to accomplish, another goal you have to achieve. That's not the way burnout prevention happens. That's not the way burnout recovery happens. Sorry, Sam. Again, I'm so sorry to be like, no, you're wrong. But you know, also, this particular video is one of the videos that inspired me to be like, I can help. Maybe I should do the YouTube thing because I think I can help.
Because all of these are affected by autistic burnout. It's not just have a few days of good sleep and then you'll be unburnt out. That is not how it works. It's more like that scene in The Lion King, you know, when the fire's been raging on Pride Rock and everything is charred and the rains come and it grows. Everything goes green again. It's more like that. Yeah, it's not like
that's really good
and everything's great. So I just wanted to reiterate that it is a process, but it's a healing process. Yeah. And you should be listening also to what you need, and you might need to listen to a voice that has been pushed way down inside you, not what other people say you need or what you think you should need. And so
That is a very good point, because a lot of the problem with curing and preventing burnout is that the advice that exists in the world is mostly designed to profit off of your suffering. It's designed to sell you things, and that's not helpful.
As I mentioned, I've been kind of teetering on the verge of burnout probably most of this year without actually going into a full burnout. And there are a few things that I'm doing.
That probably means she's burned out. She thinks she's teetering on the edge. That's probably burnout, and then like denial and thinking like, oh, the standard for how functional I should be is higher than it actually is. Like, yeah, most people like overestimate how much suffering they should be able to tolerate before it counts as a problem. And yeah, if you think you might be sort of close to burnout, yeah, you're probably already there.
Now, these are tips that they might not be relevant for you, but these are what I'm doing for me that can give you kind of an idea of like what you can do to build this burnout.
Awesome.
Burnout recovery kit, we'll call it. We're talking about the body and what you can do for your body. Exercise is a good one, and I think finding an exercise that works for you is the most important, because I have tried so much throughout my life. I used to be a gymnast because hypermobility, you know. And now I've started doing weekly Pilates reformer classes, the ones with the exciting BDSM kind of machinery.
Is that a thing?
I've been doing I think I've done 6 weeks or so, and already the difference in my body and my levels of pain, my joints and stuff like that has been incredible. So
physical activity. This is the most efficient way for most people to complete stress response cycles. So yes, she's totally right for herself, but don't feel bad if it doesn't work for you.
I can really recommend that. And it's also completely socially distanced, so it's perfect. Yeah, and I think for hypermobile people, that one works. But just it feels really good to exercise in a really calm environment that doesn't involve actually getting with a lot of loud music, because most exercise classes have loud music to motivate you, which is kind of the opposite. But
actually, like the purpose of the loud music is motivating for some people, but the purpose of the loud music in an exercise class in particular is to entrain you so that everyone is moving at the same time. We're all moving at the same time to achieve a goal together. That's what the music is for, because the human body is designed to entrain with the other humans in the room. And when we move together in time with the same goal to achieve a purpose, that is how that's actually the most efficient way to complete the stress response cycle, is when you combine moving together in time. You're joined by a common sound, by a common purpose. That is the point of the loud music, to take you outside of your individual mind. Your individual mind is not the way that you most efficiently get out of stress. It's when you entrain with the other folks and everybody in the room is moving together all at the same time. Your hearts and your breath and your bodies entrain, and everything about you. Okay, I think I've made the point. People like to entrain in time, and it's not intended to be a distraction. If you are distracted by the music, that makes you atypical. But you probably knew that already.
It's just about finding something for your body that fits in. And
yes,
that's one part. Exercise is one part. It's not the whole part of caring for your body. Obviously, caring for your body involves eating right and sleeping right. Two things which can be very difficult to do if you're not feeling yourself, if you are burnt out. And that's just something that you need to try and deal with more on an individual basis.
This is Editing Amelia jumping in for just 1 second to make sure that I acknowledge that eating disorders are especially common among autistic women more than neurotypical women. And one of the reasons for that is that we tend to have rigidity about food, and we tend to obsess and hyperfixate and hyperfocus on things that are projects, like, for example, dieting. So these are reasons why people who are autistic and people who are women who are autistic in particular really might do better if they're trying to change their eating, not to do it alone.
But, you know, like, I'm going to talk about baths and self-care now, like baths, Epsom salt baths. Oh my God, I had one this morning and it was fantastic. It was like infused with lavender. It was just absolutely lush. And
Epsom, this is not like a gentle luxury that she's talking about. Epsom salts provide magnesium, which is an evidence-based mineral that is needed, especially by women in general. But for all people, magnesium helps reduce your experience of physical pain. And also lavender. Aromatherapy sounds so woo-woo, but it's actually evidence-based. There are 2 evidence-based aromatherapy scents. One is lavender, the other is rosemary. Lavender for relaxation is evidence-based, and rosemary for attention or focus, energy. So instead of a cup of coffee, try, like, I have actually right here a lavender sachet that Emily gave me. Evidence-based, not just like a luxury, oh, I had a mineral bath with some, lavender scented salts. Like, that's an evidence-based intervention to help you feel better right now, which is exactly the kind of thing that it's clear Sam needs to be doing. So, like, no wonder she's harping about this bath.
And I can't believe it's taken me almost 35 years to discover Epsom salt baths, but like it left my skin feeling amazingly soft. I'm going to rave about them probably every chance I can get.
Good.
And I always joke about like, self-care is more than baths, but actually sometimes self-care is baths. Things to focus on, emotions. I'm someone who struggles to understand my own emotions. And I did a video on alexithymia ages ago now. Which might be of interest, which is kind of like the inability to always name your emotions, not really know what you're feeling. And actually, I feel like I have improved at that in the year or so since I made that video. And I do think that it's impossible to make progress, to improve your ability to recognize emotions, but it takes work, much like all of this takes work, unfortunately. And so I've put here in bold, actually, you are the captain of your vessel and ultimately the one in charge of its course, which sounded very good when I wrote it, but sounds quite weird to say out loud.
I love it.
And I don't know whether it's a question of like, I don't know why this term, I keep on thinking of like high functioning burnout. Is high functioning burnout, like, is that going to be offensive to anyone? I don't know. Is high functioning burnout offensive? Let me know in the chat right now. High functioning burnout, that sounds weird. But
I wrote my dissertation and took my comprehensive exams while I was burned out. So yeah, there's such a thing as high functioning burnout. I mean, if that's what you mean by it.
I guess what I mean is that you are burnt out, but you still live your life because...
Yep, that's pretty much what women do. We feel terrible and we just keep going.
Because if you're autistic, why are you a parent in the first place? That's kind of an insulting question.
Kind of insulting. That's really shitty. I hope you ban that person, Sam. That's terrible.
But like, you can't...
This minute of her like getting her feelings back together and like continuing to speak, admiration from me. That's amazing, because I would have spent 5 minutes railing against that person, and the fact that you're just moving on, so disciplined, so appropriate of you, instead of what I would do.
You have to step up when you're a parent, and
yeah, you do.
The problem is that some people, if you can't step up when you're burning out, that means that other people will have to get involved, whether that is the other parent, whether that is your family members.
If you can't step up when you're burning out, that means other people will have to get involved. Oh no, that would be tragic.
Whether that is perhaps even social services.
Yeah. And what she's talking about here is just, if you can't walk the tightrope, you might need a safety net. And I think, use that safety net, babes. Use the safety net.
I think most people would probably realize that it's better not to get into that situation.
I disagree. I think it would be the best if you ask for help before it comes to that, but other people should get involved. Other people should be involved in your parenting. Everybody should be involved in your parenting. If you have to do it alone, you're going to suffer. My point is, help's not a bad thing.
So if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you can avoid that just about. But it comes at the expense of yourself.
Yeah, it does.
And so I would say that it is possible to be in burnout without and still be functioning.
Yes,
in everyday
totally
life.
True. Totally true.
And let's see what I wrote, because I did actually write out some notes, because actually, as I mentioned earlier in this chat, I think that going through a burnout was part of the reason why I realized that I was autistic in the first place, was because it exacerbated the autistic traits and all of that kind of stuff.
Did that for me too, but I still didn't get diagnosed.
The problem is that when you are kind of burning out while autistic and a parent, and you express your difficulties, people say helpful things like, well, that's just life, that's just parenting. If you can't handle this, you shouldn't be a parent, which is, I think, is what somebody in the comments just said. You had to put other people first as a parent. And it's like, well, first of all, I didn't know I was autistic when I got pregnant, thanks. But this is all just shaming. Like, this is shaming an autistic person for struggling with something that's difficult. We're not meant to be parents in isolation.
This is just life. Okay, so yes, this is the number one barrier to most people recovering from burnout, is these shitty things that people say and the shitty beliefs they genuinely hold, that if you can't hack it, if you can't handle it, then you are weak. It's not that you've been asked to do things that are not possible, that the expectations are unreasonable, that the goals are unmeetable. It's that you are not good enough to reach those goals or to meet those demands. And that's a lie that has been told to you by companies who want to sell you stress relieving products or like whatever. Man, yeah, this is the meat of the thing, is that you come into you're trying to do your best, and you even express like, oh my God, I'm like really struggling, and I wish I had some help, for example. And they go, well, if you can't hack it, then like, why'd you even have a kid in the first place? If you've ever had that thought go through your brain, it's understandable, because the world has told you that information. You've been taught that by the outside world. How you help solve that problem is noticing that thought when it occurs to you and going, oh, that's programming by the monoculture. And it's not actually true. And I can take this moment to reteach my brain to have a new response full of kindness and compassion.
Isolated nuclear families. We're meant to be in communities. We're meant to live among people who will help. Like, yes. This idea of we should all just be shut in our rooms, yes, and you can be parenting right now, and if you can't handle that, then you're just a failure. That's just, how do we think that is how parenting should be? Of course, yes, it should be a community thing.
Of course. But like, can I also say, Sam, that eating properly and managing your emotions is also not a thing that you should be doing in isolation, or should. It's not a thing that humans are evolved to do in isolation. It's a thing that we are all designed to experience together. Together. That is how human minds are built. We're built to do big things together. Have I been singing too much?
And I think that is part of the reason why not just autistic parents are burning out, especially at the moment where there is just so much parenting to be done. It all boils down to somebody saying, well, just suck it up, buttercup, kind of thing. And it's like, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And that's how you end up in burnout. And so like, this approach is not helpful. It's not helping anyone.
Correct.
Ooh, my voice is breaking now.
Nailed it.
I would just like to point out that autistic people can make wonderful parents. And they often raise children who can empathize and accept people with their difficulties. So
that's a helpful, nice comment.
There we go. Somebody said,
Thanks,
thank you
good
for
person.
shaming the shame, a good boundary, Sam. And do you know what? I feel really anxious about the fact that I did that, because I feel like, what if they didn't mean that or whatever? The world is not set up to be kind to autistic people, and autistic parents certainly don't figure into that.
Or women, or people of color, or indigenous people, or, yeah, the world is not set up to be kind to anyone. Oh, but you know, we can change that. Because we can start by noticing when we have those shitty, unkind thoughts and being like, oh, that thought was given to me by the outside world, and I'm going to choose to weed that from my garden and only grow really beautiful, lush, lovely flowers that I choose.
So this culture of I should just suck it up is dangerous, because for me, I end up thinking I should just do that, and that is when I stop taking care of myself. And
Boom.
whether that is literally like not showering or whatever because I feel like I don't have time, even though I do have time, I just need to make the time, or something like, you know,
it's not that you do have time and you need to make the time. It's that you need to remember, despite the whole world telling you the opposite, that you deserve the time, that you deserve to not be giving everything you have to other people, and learning that and convincing yourself that that's true against all the pressure from the outside sources is literally impossible, which is why the cure for burnout is not self-care. It's all of us caring for each other.
I've been spending so much energy today, and I'm like, I don't even have a raincoat that's properly waterproof. Like, it's too short, it's leaking. Like, I am not taking care of myself. And I realized that today. And I got home, and I'm like, I am buying a raincoat and I'm taking care of myself. And it sounds silly, but I forget to do things like that. So I get annoyed. And the thing
It's not silly.
Having a good raincoat will make me a better parent, because when it's raining outside, which it does in the Netherlands, if you don't know, it's an extremely wet country.
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more ridiculous that I don't have a raincoat.
It's a great example.
So, you know, like when it's raining outside and my son goes, I want to go out the front, I'll be like, no, you know, and it just sets this awful tone. But me taking care of myself, buying myself a raincoat that, by the way, kind of looks like a cool witch raincoat because it's long and awesome, and I'll probably share a picture of it on Instagram. But, you know, like buying something for myself like that makes me a better parent, because it means that I'll go out with my son instead of just being like, no, let's just stay in and do something inside. I will be like, no, I can go out because I won't get wet and cold and miserable. So there you go.
It's a great example.
This is a very important point. Please remember that no one is perfect. No one. The perfect parent does not exist. You can only try your best. Because I'm the same. I suffer, and I just don't think, hey, I could just treat myself. It's not even treating, it's just taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Having waterproof stuff is taking care of yourself. Okay.
That happens to me all the time. Like, something's wrong and I just put up with it. And it doesn't occur to me that I could fix it. It happens all the time.
Okay. Here we go. Stephanie Bethany says, life is hard, yet we keep living. We are disabled, yet we do our best to live our lives. Deciding that something being difficult more so for us than others means we shouldn't do it, it's a bit silly. Oh, I'm going to breathe, drink some water, and catch you all later.
That's the whole thing. And these have been my responses to it. The thing overall is that she's focused on solutions and stuff you can do, which is exactly the book that Emily and I thought we were going to write. And we were wrong, man. When you dig into the research, it's just so clear that, yes, all of those things about the eating and the sleeping and the physical activity and noticing the things that you need are yeah, you got to do those things. But the reason that they're hard, the reason we aren't already doing them, is much more complicated and about the bigger picture. And yes, as she alluded to, it's the fact that autistic people and fat people and people of color and all kinds of people who do not fit the single, narrow, socially constructed ideal experience friction between who they are and who the world wants them to be. Even though we all have different differences, we all experience that same friction. And when we share this together, just like this, exactly what she was doing with having a live and making a conversation out of it, and what I'm trying to do to like, you know, engage in some larger dialogue, that this is how we cure burnout. It's all of us caring for each other.